The New Jersey Devils now officially know where they'll be picking in the first round of this year's NHL Draft. Plus, Sonny Mehta makes his first hire in the front office as general manager of this team. All that and more on this edition of the Devils State of Mind podcast. And what is going on, Devils fans? As always, it is your host, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano. And welcome to another edition of the Devils State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as SportsWire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your newly appointed assistant general manager of the New Jersey Devils. And as always, Devils fans, hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you're checking out the episode. And thank you guys, as always, for taking time out of your day to check these episodes out. You guys know all the time that I greatly appreciate it. We're just a few subscribers away from getting to 200 here on YouTube. So make sure, if you are new here, to leave a like, obviously, on this video, but also subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you get notified of new videos and episodes that come out. Tell all your friends to do the same and help us get to 200 over here on YouTube. And as always, shout out to our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And for new customers who want to get in on the huge cash prizes, all you got to do is sign up with our promo code THPN. You bet just $5 on your first bet, and you get $100 instantly in risk-free bet money. And I know that the NBA playoffs haven't been as entertaining as a lot of people hoped. And maybe to an extent, you can maybe say the same thing about the Stanley Cup playoffs. But nonetheless, DraftKings is constantly giving you new ways to get in on all these huge money prizes. And so again, if you want to get in on the action, all you got to do is sign up with our promo code THPN. Again, promo code THPN, bet $5, and you get $100 instantly in risk-free bet money. Perfect offer to get in right now, courtesy of our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. And as always, Devils fans, make sure to bet responsibly. So now we know where the New Jersey Devils will be picking in this year's NHL entry draft. And honestly, it comes as no surprise at all. We knew that this was the most likely position that the Devils are going to be in. Nobody is upset about it. Nobody is disheartened or angry or anything like that. So it really just is what it is. And it'll be fascinating to see what the Devils ultimately do with that pick. We'll get to that in just a moment. And also, as of today, literally earlier this morning, actually, the Devils announced the first new hire by Sonny Mehta as the GM of the New Jersey Devils. And it comes via the front office. We're also going to be talking about some rumors about other potential candidates that could be brought in by Sonny Mehta for the front office. We'll talk Devils representatives. We now have an official list of the Devils representatives at the World Championships. And last, but certainly not least, I want to talk about Arseny Griciuk, because some news is going to be coming out about him tomorrow morning. And we'll talk a little bit about what that might mean and more. So as always, Devils fans, we got a bunch to get to here on the Devils State of Mind podcast. So let's not waste any more time and get rolling. And we will get rolling and drop the puck with, again, we start with the NHL Draft Lottery results. And so for the New Jersey Devils, to no one's surprise, they will be picking 12th overall in the first round. The best case scenario would have been for the Devils to somehow jump from 12 to 2. But ultimately, that's not what happened. The Devils did not move at all. And that is totally fine. I said it before that it really wasn't that big of a deal. The only way it would have been a big deal is if the Devils had moved up. But again, it was very unlikely that that was ultimately going to happen. But the thing that did surprise people was with looking at what we got with the top 3. As the Toronto Maple Leafs jumped from 5 to number 1 overall to get the first overall pick. So they have won we'll call it the Gavin McKenna / Ivar Stenberg sweepstakes. And it's really crazy to think about where the Leafs were right before the draft lottery with hiring John Chayka, with that disastrous situation that was that press conference, the introductory press conference, to then literally the same day, the Leafs winning the draft lottery. And I was listening to Steve Dangle on his YouTube page and also on the Steve Dangle podcast. And I agree with him. He said, isn't this the funniest outcome that you could have had? And in many ways it is. And now granted, the Devils and myself and everybody involved with the Devils were in a different position. We weren't expected to get the first overall pick, nor were we hoping that was going to ultimately be the situation. It's so from our perspective, it is very funny. But for the perspectives of teams like the Vancouver Canucks, the Chicago Blackhawks to a lesser extent, and certainly teams like the Calgary Flames, it's not much of a laughing matter. But nonetheless, the Toronto Maple Leafs have won the draft lottery, and the San Jose Sharks move up from ninth overall, and move up, or eighth overall, and move up to the second overall pick. For Mike Greer, former assistant coach of the New Jersey Devils and now current general manager of the San Jose Sharks, I mean, you know, it's one of those classic things, right? The rich get richer. And so for the San Jose Sharks, I mean, they are in the driver's seat. They're going to, obviously, if they do decide to keep the pick, are going to get one of Gavin McKenna or Ivan Stenberg to ultimately add to that amazing core that they already have of Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, William Eklund, Jason Dickinson, so much more. There's already talks about perhaps the Sharks might look to trade down and maybe gain some more assets and ultimately probably take one of the defensemen. I think it's unlikely because a lot of those trades don't normally happen. But again, let's never rule out any of those possibilities. And for the Vancouver Canucks, you know, to have the season that they did, where you ultimately bottom out, you have one of your worst seasons in franchise history. You trade Quinn Hughes, and he's doing fantastic with the Minnesota Wild. And then ultimately, all of that goes for naught as you drop from 1 to 3. So you are, it would take a lot of head scratching for somehow one of McKenna or Stenberg to be there at 3. So really, I think it's very fair to say that the Canucks are the biggest losers of this draft lottery, and it is what it is, right? Unfortunately, that's just how the cookie crumbles. But my heart does go out to the Canucks fans, and also my boss Dylan Kaiser, who is a big Canucks fan. That's got to be extremely frustrating. Extremely frustrating. One thing that was mentioned that was actually kind of funny is that the Devils are kind of responsible for why the Rangers ultimately didn't end up with a top 3 pick, because the Devils beat the Rangers in the last game that they played at home at the Prudential Center, where Jack Hughes got the hat trick. The Rangers actually ended up when you look at how the lottery ended up going, they could have, the Rangers, if they had won that game, would have been in position to potentially get that first overall pick, and they would have been in the driver's seat, but ultimately that not. And granted, I know that there are many other losses that happened in the Rangers, and people would say it's irrelevant. I just think that it's a pretty funny thing to think about, where you think that it's possible that the Devils screwed the Rangers in that sense. So in a way, I guess you could say that's another win for the Devils in the Hudson River rivalry from this past year. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, for the Devils, they picked 12th overall. We'll dive deeper as we get a little bit closer to the draft. Kind of a couple of different prospects that are likely guys that will be there at 12 and who could be intriguing guys for the Devils to ultimately take. But again, the big question that I'll leave for you guys here to wrap up this segment is this. Do you think the Devils should keep the 12th overall pick, or should they look to move the 12th overall pick to get help right away? And it's not a guarantee that the Devils could get tremendous value for the 12th overall pick. There might be some teams that perhaps want to try to either get closer in the first round or get into the first round that have guys that the Devils could benefit from bringing onto the team right now. But The other thing to keep in mind is this. You go back to what Sonny Mehta said at his introductory press conference that I think is very important. He said that while, yes, he wants the Devils to be competitive and be really good now, he's also looking towards the future as well. And this will be his first draft. And we want to see the Devils have a better. And ultimately, sorry that it cut out for a second there. Ultimately, bring in, young talent that could make this prospect pool better. Remember, the Devils, as of recently, have the 23rd overall prospect pool in the NHL. That's something that needs to improve 1000%. So at the end of the day, we will see what ultimately happens. But again, let me know what you guys think. Do you want to see the Devils keep the 12th overall pick, or do you want to see them move it for other win now assets? It's going to be really intriguing over the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the NHL draft, which this year will be held about a month and a half from now in Buffalo. So for the Buffalo Sabres organization being in the second round of the playoffs and now hosting the NHL draft lottery, it's a good time to be a Buffalo Sabres fan, which you haven't been able to say for quite a long time. So now let's shift to news that we got today. It's funny because I was in the middle of writing the script for today's episode, and I was taught one of the things that came up was talking about potential guys that Mehta could look to try to bring in to help round out the front office. Remember, last week we were told that both Chuck Fletcher and assistant general manager Dan McKinnon would not have their contracts renewed. They weren't fired. They basically were just, their contracts were up, and the Devils decided they didn't want to keep them. And Mehta is starting to bring in his own guys as he makes his first official hire as general manager of the Devils, as he brings in Braden Birch as the newest assistant general manager and also the new general manager of the Utica Comets. So this is from the press release that was thrown out earlier this morning. The New Jersey Devils announced that Braden Birch has joined the organization as assistant general manager. In his new role, Birch will serve as general manager of the Utica Comets and aid Mehta and his staff in scouting, contract management, roster, and cap strategy. I will say right off the bat, that is such a breath of fresh air to know that we are bringing in a guy similar to Mehta who has experience with dealing with the cap, and that's going to be so important because more than anything, figuring out how we're going to get through this difficulty with the cap and ultimately the lack of cap space is going to be the biggest thing for this franchise moving forward. A little bit of background about Birch. He worked with Sonny Mehta as part of the Florida Panthers front office, so he brings in a familiar face that helped to win back-to-back Stanley Cups both in 2024 and obviously last year. And he spent the last 12 years with the Florida Panthers working as director of hockey operations and salary cap management for the past 5 years, and previously serving as special assistant to the Panthers general manager, Bill Zito. Birch started his career as an intern and throughout his time in Florida touched every area of the hockey business, including salary cap management, finance, and pro scouting department. Bottom line, this guy has a lot of experience and has been around the game of hockey for a long time. That was what Elliot Friedman actually said in his 32 Thoughts last week when talking about Braden Birch and saying that he's been around for a while. He knows a lot about the game in a multitude of different ways. This is a guy that could potentially become a general manager down the road, needs some more experience, and now gets an even bigger role as now the assistant general manager of the Devils. And Birch is also a former player. The Chicago Blackhawks selected Birch with the 179th overall pick in the 6th round of the 2008 NHL Draft. And he was a left shot defenseman that started his pro career in 2013-14, where he played in the ECHL with Florida and Colorado. And he also spent time playing in the Finnish top league, Liga, with HIFK, where he was an assistant captain. He also played 4 years of college hockey at the Cornell University, where he was a captain while playing there. And he has a master's degree in sports management from Florida Atlantic University. So again, this guy is extremely bright. To some people, you could even maybe consider that he's an up-and-coming guy, very similar to where Sonny Mehta is now, where why did Mehta get hired? Because he was an up-and-coming guy that was ready to take on a GM position. I think the same thing can be said for Braden Birch, where I think in the next 2 or 3 years, especially if he does a good job in helping Sonny Mehta, that ultimately Birch will start to get general manager potential opportunities. So that's really what I take away. And so what's most exciting again is that the amount of experience and understanding that Birch has when it comes to cap management. And again, I keep reiterating it because it's so important. And also roster management as well. So Mehta brings in a guy that he's worked with very closely, helping the Panthers win Stanley Cups. And now they're bringing more of that championship pedigree to New Jersey. And again, I cannot tell you how much of a breath of fresh air this really is, because it's so important. And it just gives this fan base even more up, and also just overall excitement to see how Mehta and Birch and the rest of that front office goes. Management, all of that together, it's really exciting. And I'm very, very curious to see how it all goes down. So again, the Devils and Sonny Mehta making his first hire as the general manager of the Devils by bringing in a familiar face in Braden Birch, who is now the new assistant general manager of the New Jersey Devils and now the new general manager of the Utica Comets. And we're going to stick now to continuing to focus on the front office, because in that same 32 Thoughts podcast last week, Elliot Freeman brought up another name that Sonny Mehta could potentially bring in a different area. I don't think it would be an assistant GM position. It's possible, but it's unlikely because currently Kate Madigan is still one of the assistant general managers. Martin Brodeur also is still employed by the Devils. Doesn't sound like either one of them are going to be getting fired anytime soon. Again, things could change, but we'll certainly keep our eye on that. But this more involves around player development, which again is another important aspect. And so Elliot Freeman on 32 Thoughts spoke on some options that Mehta could look to bring in to help the front office. He said, one of the people I'm curious to see if Mehta will try to add is Bryan McCabe. McCabe, the former Maple Leaf defenseman, has a really good reputation for player development. Mackenzie Weegar is one of the guys that has credited McCabe in the past for really helping him become the player he's become. Given his success in helping players such as Weegar, Gustav Forsling, and Dmitry Kulikov develop into significant blue liners, the kind of guidance would go a long way for Devils defenders. And overall, I think just the Devils as a whole. So Bryan McCabe, again, another former player, former Toronto Maple Leafs, a guy that Friedman also said, if the Leafs decide to make other changes to their front office after hiring both Shaka and Matt Sundin, then it's very possible that McCabe could come back and be a part of the front office for the team that he played for. But again, if the Leafs don't, and the Devils jump at the opportunity and Mehta still wants to go and bring in a guy like McCabe, that the Devils could ultimately have him. And again, I am so for it because I have a lot of trust in Sonny Mehta. And I understand that, again, it's still very early in Mehta's tenure. He hasn't made any player moves or coaching moves or anything. But I think just the way that he's going about this process and taking it slow and evaluating everything, already starting to make some moves that are based around things like player management, roster management, cap construction, and player development, it just, again, goes such a long way. So I see this and I say to myself, I trust that Sonny Mehta, if he ultimately does bring in McCabe, that he's making a really, really good move that is important. Again, you mentioned some of those names that we just talked about. Mackenzie Weegar, Gustav Forsling, and also Dmitry Kulikov, former New Jersey Devil Dmitry Kulikov. A couple of those guys, integral parts on the back end to the Panthers winning those Stanley Cups. Mackenzie Weegar, who was in Florida at the beginning, was helped developed by McCabe to ultimately become the player that he is now, playing with Utah, and also his success that he had while playing with the Calgary Flames. So overall, again, Sonny Mehta is trying to focus on different, very important areas of roster, cap, development, and all of this just leads to, I think, what could be very, 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 very good hires overall. So we'll keep our eye on that. Nothing has been official, no talks or anything like that has happened. But again, very similar to what happened with Braden Birch, the announcement just kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't even like we, knew that it was coming ahead of time. This just dropped at about 10 a.m. this morning. So that's what it is. So again, we will see what other moves that Sonny Mehta makes with the front office, and also obviously what other moves he will ultimately make to help retool this team. Because again, as we talked about, he's got a lot of work to do, and he's already getting the ball rolling and making some necessary changes, and we'll see what other changes he will make down the road. Now, before we continue on here, just want to give another quick shout out to our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And again, the Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League, has a new customer offer. As I mentioned before, you sign up with our promo code THPN, you bet $5, just $5, and you get $100 instantly in risk-free bet money. And again, with the Stanley Cup playoffs going on, the NBA playoffs, baseball literally in full swing, and so much more, DraftKings is your number one destination to get in on all the huge cash prizes. So make sure you get in on this offer, and all you have to do once more is sign up with our promo code THPN. You bet $5, and that $5 turns into $100 instantly in bonus bets in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Blue Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer. Copyright and 2026 NHL. All rights reserved. So now we'll shift to the back end of this episode, and we'll start by talking about the official list of players that we know that the Devils will have that will represent them at the 2026 IIHF World Championships, again being held in Zurich, Switzerland. So Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, and although he's not playing, he'll still be with the team. Jonas Siegenthaler will get a chance to be in their home country playing on another major international stage. And we got a couple names yesterday, and as we know right now, this is the official number of players. The Devils will have 6 players going to the World Championships representing the Devils. And we'll start with Lenny Hamanaho, who obviously is coming off a fairly decent rookie season, playing a bunch with the Devils, has certainly shown some promise, has some really, really solid goal scoring. That goes such a long way, and be interesting to see how he can build upon that. He will be playing for Finland. Connor Brown, as we mentioned last week, he'll be playing for Canada. Paul Cotter, who actually had a very solid game in the tune-up game over the weekend for Team USA against Germany. He had 2 assists. He'll be playing for Team USA. As I also mentioned last week, Nico Hischier and Timo Meier will be playing for Switzerland, while Jonas Siegenthaler is dealing with an injury, but he'll still be with the team throughout the tournament. And Devils prospect Mateusz Mitlowski will be playing for Czechia. So the Devils will have some prospect also to look at in this tournament. This overall tournament, the World Championships, will start this upcoming Friday, the 15th. A lot of games, I think, will be over on NHL Network, so you'll have plenty of opportunities to watch these guys play and watch the tournament as a whole. The United States, the defending champions, will look to see if they can win their 2nd consecutive World Championship gold medal and really end 2026 from an international standpoint on a major, major, major high note. So those are the Devils representatives at this year's IIHF World Championship. So now we come to talking about Arseny Gritsyuk. So Arseny Gritsyuk, as we know, restricted free agent. All signs point to it is that the Devils are going to find a way to sign him to a contract extension. Whether that is a long-term or a bridge deal remains to be seen. I don't know how much scouting that Sonny Mehta has done when it comes to ultimately evaluating Arseny Gritsyuk and his overall value. And I'm sure he's already done his due diligence a lot. And I bring that up because Arseny Gritsyuk on his Telegram, which if you have not subscribed to his Telegram, you absolutely need to, because he just started getting back into it. Very entertaining guy. Really enjoyed it throughout the season. And I'm glad he's doing it again. He made an announcement he made a post, on his Telegram that there is going to be a major announcement tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. I have no idea what that means. It could mean a multitude of things. The one that I think most of us would hope for, if not all of us, is that the Devils and Gritsyuk will announce a contract extension, which would mean one less guy we have to worry about moving forward. Is it likely that that's what's going on? Probably not, but you never know, right? I can't tell you what else it might be. Maybe he's doing a podcast. Maybe he's doing something differently. I really don't know. There's so many ways you can go about this. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, you download Telegram, and you sign up to Gritsyuk's Telegram. And 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, he will make whatever announcement that is. One other thing he did that I'm going to call the Artemi Panarin experiment is that he shaved his head. Yes, he literally cut his hair and now has a buzz cut. And I have to be honest with you, the way that it looks, I absolutely hate it. It looks awful. I don't know why this decision was made. I don't know if this was Gritsyuk in his own accord doing this. I do not know. This is tough to look at. I'm not going to lie. He looked a lot better when he had his hair. But maybe he was trying to, like I said, like Artemi Panarin tried to get rid of the demons that he was dealing with, if he was dealing with any demons, and get ready for next season. I don't know. This is I thought at first when he said there was an announcement, I thought this was the announcement. I thought this was the announcement that he cut his hair. Like, that's what I thought about. But he did make a post earlier on Instagram on his story saying, he kind of missed actually having this kind of hair. So ultimately he decides this is what he wanted to do, and that's what he's going to do. But the announcement hasn't happened yet. It'll happen tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm hoping it's a contract extension. Wouldn't be surprised if it's not. Projected deals, by the way, range from a 2 to 3 year bridge deal contract, $3.5 million to $4.5 million AAV, to a longer term deal, which could be more in the $6 or $7 million range per year. I think the possibilities with him are endless, but certainly the Devils are going to want to bring him back. He really lived up to a lot of the hype and excitement in his 1 year playing in the NHL and playing with the Devils. And hopefully he can build upon that. Maybe push for that 30-goal mark next year would be absolutely awesome to see. Maybe shaving his head ultimately is what's going to lead him to that kind of luck and that kind of skill next year. We shall see. But on that note, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Devil State of Mind podcast. Really do appreciate, as always, guys, you taking time to check the episodes out. Again, if you are here on YouTube and you like what you see, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified every time a new episode comes out. Also, clips as well from the podcast and breaking news videos that I put out on all the social media platforms. But make sure you do that. Again, we are so close to 200 subscribers, so please subscribe if you have not already. And also check out the podcast wherever you get your audio listening podcast. Just search Devil State of Mind, Apple, Spotify, Google, all that good stuff. And if you're on Apple or Spotify, please do me a major favor and leave a 5-star rating on either one. It continues to grow the podcast and get it out to more Devils fans like yourself. And you can also follow the podcast on our social media platforms, Devil State of Mind on both Facebook and Instagram. We are Devil State over on Twitter. You also can follow my TikTok as well. Just search my name, Neil.Villapiano. That is my username. And also make sure to follow my BlueSky account as well, Neil Villapiano, to get Devil State of Mind podcast updates and Devils updates as well over on there. But again, thank you guys so much for checking out this episode, and we will see you in the next episode. Everyone, continue to be the awesome people that you are. We're getting through this offseason, an offseason that is going to be action-packed, and we will be here throughout the entire of it. But again, thank you all. Continue to be the awesome people that you are. And as I always say, at the end of every episode, put those horns up, baby, and say those words. Let's go, Devils.